Hello, everyone, and welcome back to episode 4 of the Beskar Bucket. I am your host, John, and once again, I am here with Jess, my close friend of mine who has watched Star Wars for the very first time.
Yeah.
So, this time we are back with the original trilogy, and so just right out the gun. Jess, what were your thoughts on the original trilogy? Just
Um,
as an overarching.
I thought it was great. I think like it kept me stimulated all the way through. Like for some of that time period, like I'm not a huge sci-fi guy, but I think it really held up against the prequel trilogy. I mean, it's just such a unique atmosphere to him. It's just very Star Wars, and there's no really other way to explain it. But yeah, it was really good.
Yeah, and look, the original trilogy by most is revered as the gold standard. Now, me personally, everyone knows I like the prequels more, but the original trilogy was obviously it was the original. It was where everything got started. So, and these movies they were so ahead of their time than most people understand. So, being that they were 70s and 80s, being released in the 70s and 80s, what were your thoughts on? Obviously, you watched what everyone considers the special editions that are on Disney Plus. So,
Mhm.
but what did you think of the effects that were more or less left untouched from the original trilogy? Did they stand up to what you would consider to be, an acceptable level of special effects, or did it not quite hit the
Abs-
mark for you?
No, absolutely. There was one scene that came to mind where the stormtroopers they're searching Tatooine for these droids, and they're riding those weird like cow creature lizard things, and it really stood up it. I mean, it's just great animation, especially for the time. I mean, like some of them even reminded me of like Spy Kids, and Spy Kids is one of those super popular movies with kind of bad animation, but still a respectable level of well, like artwork, I guess. But it was really good, super solid.
Well, funny you say that, because the scene that you're talking about is when they're riding the dewbacks through the Dune Sea. Those are special edition um, additions to the episode 4.
Damn.
So um, yeah, but overall, I would say a good chunk of with the exception of A New Hope, the original trilogy was it for the most part they're pretty true to what their original special effects were.
Gotcha.
Um,
Gotcha.
A New Hope was the one that was the most edited because ILM was just getting off the ground,
Mm.
so it was they weren't like basing this off of anything. They were just kind of running gun, making shit up as they went. So like I said, they were ahead of their time for a lot of this stuff. It wasn't like, oh, I'm gonna go hire XYZ because he did this on ZYX. No, they found guys that kind of knew what they were doing, and of course, this a lot of this knowledge is now because I've seen the first half of the Light and Magic documentary that's on Disney Plus now that studies the Industrial Light and Magic, the special effects company that George Lucas started in specifically for Star Wars. So, but yeah, they a lot of the effects they did, it was a lot of first time, groundbreaking type stuff. So,
Yeah, the practical effects were really cool. I remember reading a lot of stuff about how like some of those shots they did. I think one of the shots with like the Death Star, they only had like one chance to do it, and like it had to be right the first time, or they weren't going to get it. And it's just they were. I mean, let's see, the third one came out the same year that War Games came out. I mean, like it was just if you look at the practical effects, especially from the first movie of the trilogy to the last movie of the trilogy, they just keep getting better and better. And you mentioned like bringing in a lot of guys for Star Wars specifically. There's a podcast called 20,000 Hertz, where they've got a whole episode dedicated to the sounds of Star Wars.
mhm.
And so So they brought in a guy to do the sound work for it, and it was a super original process. Just and it was kind of cool getting a chance to listen to like where those sounds came from. Like I think Chewbacca was someone's pet bear in like Wisconsin or something like that.
Mhm.
So like it's just a super cool like passion project for George. I think it was great.
Yeah, so Ben Burt was that was the gentleman that was responsible for all the sounds that we know and love today. So the tie fight, the screech of the tie fighters, the hum of the lightsabers, Chewbacca's growls, those all came from Ben Burt just messing with random things that you wouldn't expect to be, you know, you wouldn't make that connection that you know, oh this wait or oh it was either a camera or a projector that was making this distinct
It was
hum.
It was a movie projector. Yeah, it was a movie projector, and he held the microphone by a string, and then like swung it across the in front of the
Mhm.
movie projector to get the sound.
Yep. Yeah, so you can thank Ben Burt for all those wonderful sounds. But
Thank you, Ben Burt.
so kind of just jumping into A New Hope. I mean, this was 1977. This was before any of because nobody knew what Star Wars was back then because it didn't exist. In it A New Hope slash Star Wars is one of those movies where it kind of came out of nowhere. Um, they talk about in the Light and Magic documentary where it was they were out getting drinks across from a theater, and they looked over across the way and they're like, oh, I wonder what the ruckus about because they packed the parking lot of this theater of people wanting to get in to see Star Wars. So, I think Episode 4 is one of the most revolutionary films ever created because it changed the way that we looked at special effects and science fiction specifically, but it changed the way that films were created forever. If without ILM, you don't have movies like okay, you don't have effects like we do today. Like ILM still works on all the Marvel movies. They work on actually quite a bit of every a little bit of everything because it's ILM is not tied to Lucasfilm and it thus forth it's not tied to Disney. So they did the work on the Transformers movies. They've done ILM's done a lot of work on a lot of everything. So without Star Wars, you don't have a lot of these modern films, at least not up to the quality that they were. Because George Lucas was bold enough and he was confident enough to push the envelope of special effects. So I without ILM and without Star Wars, you don't have what you have today. But now that you've seen them all, you've what are your thoughts just comparing the two trilogies that we've talked about so far? What being that the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy they're from two very different times. One was the late 70s, early 80s, the other was late 90s, early 2000s. How would you say the two compare in your mind to to each other?
Well, I think honestly, the feeling that I got watching the prequel, at times watching it, I almost felt like I was watching like Clone Wars because of how heavily they use the special effects there. But I think that still ties in. It's still like going from watching the prequels first, like I just watched them in chronological order. I didn't watch them in release order. So going from watching the prequels to watching the original trilogy, I mean it would like yes, the difference was noticeable, but they still held up. It's still cohesive. I think George Lucas's vision was portrayed accurately. um I mean you told me that he only directed the first one, but then through the second one you really start to like as soon as they start the second movie, you get like this sense of like grandeur that you get from the prequel. And that's when you really start to see like, wow, okay, this is really where it all started here, where it's just a pet project that got a whole lot more funding, and then just exploded. I mean, just such a sense of like grandeur throughout the original and the prequel series.
Well, it's funny you say you mentioned the funding. So I don't know if I've told you this before or not, but the 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 behind the scenes thing with Star Wars is Fox told George Lucas when he, because nobody in Hollywood wanted to touch Star Wars with a 10-foot pole, going back to the ILM, because there was no studio that could produce the effects that George wanted to achieve. So hence he went out and made his own company to do his special effects. Fox was the only one that would touch it for 50% of the distribution profits. So George agreed to it, but he said, I want 100% of the merchandising rights. So he retained international merchandising rights, and Star Wars was a hit. And the back then, the thing with movies is, if you had a hit movie, you had to have toys. You had to have toys for the kids to play with. So George went to Kenner and had the 3 3/4 inch action figures. It was 1978, so almost a year after the movie had come out is when the first Kenner toys started to come out, and they flew off the shelves. George was an instant millionaire afterwards. So when it came time for Empire and negotiating with Fox, um, he goes to them and said, "Okay, here's what I'm offering you." And they're like, "Well, this says you get 100% of the distribution rights and 100% of the merchandising rights, like, you know." And he said, "Well, you paid for half of the first movie and you got half of the distribution rights. I'm using the money I made from the merchandising and funding the second movie. So you get X amount of whatever the box office. I don't remember exactly what the figures were, but he retained the 100%. I want to say it was the distribution profits, but either way, I'm probably butchering this, but he went back and he essentially told Fox, it's like, look, you're not getting a whole lot because you're not paying for most of this. You're not really paying for any of it. George Lucas funded Empire Strikes Back. He funded Return of the Jedi, and I believe he funded the prequels too, because he had made so much money, because he had the foresight, because he knew Star Wars was going to be a hit. He knew as long as he could get what he imagined, at least to some degree, on screen, that it was going to be a hit. So that's why he retained the international merchandising rights and made a ton of money doing so, and was able to fund his projects and what he wanted to do. And it's not like Fox had much of a choice. It's like, well, either we, because they didn't retain sequel rights, because they didn't think there was going to be a sequel at the time, because this was, if you think about it, Star Wars is so ingrained in our popular culture now, that it doesn't sound so far-fetched. But think back to before Star Wars was a thing. And if someone were to explain this story of a farm boy who meets a space wizard monk, and they have to fight this evil empire in space, you would they would look at you like you had three heads. And they did. He got laughed out of every studio in Hollywood except for Fox. So it's yeah, the funding thing is always interesting for me to think about. Of He was able to go into a Hollywood movie studio and say, no, you're not getting a big chunk of this one. If you want to put it out and distribute it, you are more than welcome to, but you're not paying for it, so you really don't have much of a say. So, but all right, so let's dive into episode 4 then. So, what were your initial thoughts? Let's go. Let's break it down by scene. In that first scene, you see the Star Destroyer and the Tantive 4 coming over the planet of Tatooine. I know for me personally, that was one of the most encapsulating moments in cinema history for me. I know I was immediately hooked when you see this, what seems to be a really big ship in the Tantive 4, the
Mhm.
Rebel blockade runner, and then you see this massive Star Destroyer come overhead, and it dwarfs the blockade runner in screen. what were some of your thoughts when that kind of came on screen?
It really takes a second to grasp just like the scale of some of these ships, like because it's really hard, especially when you're on like Leah's ship, because they have like such as like these small sets, and so it's really hard to get a picture of just how big these things are, and then to think about like all the crew that's on Leah's ship, and then to see the Star Destroyer. It's just it really gives you like just an amazing idea of the scale of what's about to happen.
Mhm. Yeah, it's the especially when you see how small the planet even looks underneath the Star Destroyer. And of course, that's all perspective and in just how it was shot. But I still think that looking at Tatooine underneath the Star Destroyer and making that look small, I thought that was the most important scene in the entire movie because from the jump after when the crawl and you see all this floating text in space disappear, you're really you're there's no better word than you're encapsulated in this sense of reality where it's okay, that's big, but that's bigger kind of feel. But so, what were your thoughts when Vader first made his appearance? Because Vader makes a grand appearance,
Oh yeah,
and
he does.
it's one of those scenes that I feel like is highly underrated in Star Wars.
So I always have to smile to myself when I watch those opening scenes, because I remember them so well from playing Lego Star Wars over and over and over again. Just our little boys in blue fighting against just an indomitable force, and uh, just immediate presence like just shit's about to go down when he walks through those doorways. It's just an immediate overwhelming feeling of power.
Yeah, and I think that eh, having Vader um, just have that grand entrance of the stormtroopers have completely just slaughtered all of the rebels in that hallway, and Vader just kind of walks in after the wreckage and looks around and just man on a mission walks through. I think that's powerful. But so kind of jumping around a little bit, um when 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 you see the scene with Leia and Vader, you're part of the Rebel Alliance and a traitor. Take her away. That scene that's kind of what I'm getting at here. Um how how did you feel about how Vader presented himself in at least on the blockade runner scenes? Because Vader doesn't get a lot of screen time in I think it's 11 minutes in the very first in Star Wars.
Oh wow.
Um so yeah, Vader is not the main antagonist at least it depending on who you ask. In A New Hope, Vader really isn't the main antagonist. I personally believe it's Grand Moff Tarkin.
Mm.
But how did you feel that Vader in this movie specifically, forgetting about Empire and Jedi, in A New Hope, what how did you perceive Vader? Did you feel him as like a threatening presence, or do you feel
He
that he was underwhelming?
he almost feels like the Hound from Game of Thrones. Like he is a rabid dog on the loose. He has been set on these rebels, and he's gonna do what he came to do. It just um he's just so powerful, and just commands every room that he's in. Um and it's just he's just vicious, just a real vicious dude. Um, and he's cold blooded. He's cold blooded. He is an absolute reptile. He's a snake, man. So I think he's just yeah, he's intimidating. He's scary.
Yeah. Was there any part in that in the first act that really stuck out to you of being or I guess really the first sequence I will that really stuck out is either good or bad? Is there anything in there that really struck a chord with you?
Um, I would have to say, just the way that the Leia speaks to Vader is really impressive to me. I think you see a lot of Padme in Leia. If you're thinking about the prequels, I mean, if you're thinking it from a release point of view, I mean, we don't get to see that, but from a continuity standpoint, I think it's really impressive watching her hold her ground against this big bad evil dude. I mean, I just thought that was impressive. The dialogue they had between each other is, I think you described George Lucas's dialogue as Shakespearean almost, like timeless, and I think
Mhm.
it's uh, just a great way to show and not tell about these two characters. I thought it was really well done.
Yeah, and the Lucas's main goal for Star Wars was he wanted it to be timeless, and he wanted it. He didn't want to date it. So, to use another Lucas example, if you look at American Graffiti, it's about hot rodding cars in the '60s. That's not timeless. There is real world things to ground there, and that's because of the setting, but also because of the dialogue and the way that the characters speak. So the way he wrote Star Wars was, okay, how can I make this and not use, your the 1977, speaking patterns? Because our generation, we've got our own way of speaking, we've got our own slang, we've got things of that nature, and we've got our own dialect. And he wanted to make it to where it wasn't, you couldn't look at Star Wars just on a dialogue basis and be like, ah, that was from 70s, 80s. It was supposed to be like, okay, this is from a different time, altogether. This isn't like modern, if you will. So it's not modern, but it's not futuristic, but it's not ancient, if that makes sense.
Mm.
So I think that, especially in the original trilogy, it's, look, there's some bad dialogue in the prequels. I can admit that. Not as much as a lot of people say, but at least in my personal opinion. But the dialogue in the original trilogy it's spot on. It achieves exactly what Lucas was intending to get out of it. Um, Now moving forward to Tatooine, so obviously the 3PO and R2, they're jettisoning the escape pod, and they land on this desert planet. Um, Seeing that grand scope of things, it's this vast desert of emptiness. I know, me personally, I always got the feeling of this was otherworldly. Um, Obviously we know it's not on an entirely different planet, but I was just wondering if that actually, if you had that same sort of scope and feel about Tatooine.
Um, yeah, I mean, it was really, I mean, we think about space and we think about like just endless like desolation. There's just nothing out there. I mean, and what better way to like symbolize that than just like an endless desert? And so, uh, I, I mean, yeah, it. They were dropped on a planet, who knows where, and at the furthest place from the bright center of the universe, as Luke describes it. And you're right. It was very otherworldly, and just that they were just in the middle of nowhere, billions of light years away from help from anything really.
Yeah, I know I know the first scene in on Tatooine that really that kind of gave me that jolt of like, oh wow, this doesn't feel like, you film this in the back lot of a, warehouse. It was when 3PO is walking through the Dune Sea, and you see the crate dragon skeleton just lying there. And I don't know why. I mean, there's decomposed skeletons of animals in, anywhere you go that's in a, wooded area, or somewhere that's not like civilization. But I don't know why this massive skeleton, to me, just, I was like, wow, that's not something you see every day. You know, that kind of gave me that sense of like, oh, this is a different planet. It actually, gave me that suspension of disbelief. Um, but how with Tatooine, it's one of the most populated planets that we see with different creatures and characters and other bits and bobs. Was there anything that stuck out to you specifically of any of the creatures or any of the inhabitants of Tatooine that you thought were interesting?
Um, I'm trying to remember. I mean, the band is always iconic. It's a super original idea. And I mean, just he's really coming up with all of this off the top of his head. I mean, it's just, and they're so different. I mean, there's every shade of color there, and he's able to keep them looking realistic and like they belong in this kind of place. But specifically, no one besides like the band comes to mind. Um, but yeah, there's a lot of different fun characters to look at. And the way that he formulates each language is also really interesting as well. Like it feels very real and very unique, and you've got to appreciate the effort that he put into those languages that he created.
A little bit of trivia for you. Can you tell me what the style or the actual music or musicians are called from the Cantina band? I doubt it,
Uh, yeah,
but
no, definitely not.
I swear to God, this is actually what it is. So the band is called Finger and Dan and the Modal Notes. The type of music is called jizz,
Okay,
and the
okay,
and the like what a jizz musician would be is a jizz whaler.
all
Swear to
right,
God, that's canon Star Wars lore.
all right.
And
I
again,
never
you
thought I
got
would
it.
say this on the record, but I love jizz, man. It's timeless.
Hey, you know, it really just sticks, don't
Yep,
it?
yep.
um, but yeah, but like you were saying though, like this is all out of George Lucas's imagination. This is just it's straight out of his brain. So as funny as it is in 2022, you gotta give credit to him for. I mean, he had a name and in a description for almost everything in those movies. I mean, now we've got an encyclopedia level of knowledge for available to us. There are websites called like Wikipedia. There's visual dictionaries and things of that nature. All because George Lucas had these ideas in his head, and the funny thing about him is he would always be like, "Oh yeah, that's oh my god." I'm trying to think of an example. Like, okay, you remember the blue guys, red eyes in the cantina?
Mhm.
Um, Someone would be like, what the hell is this? And he'd be like, oh, that's a Durin, and he would give a whole backstory to the Durin characters and the species, just like it was common knowledge. Like you and I, like if you and I were talking about cars, you're gonna be like, oh, what kind of car is that? Oh, it's a 1968 Corvette with this motor and this transmission in it, just like it was commonplace. You know, but this was all just out of his head. This was all just knowledge that he had at the time. So and again, a credit to him and all of the costume designers and the writers who worked on Star Wars. Where it's like, first off, the fact that you would be able to put up with that, where it's just like, okay, this is different. It's something interesting to think about nowadays.
He
But
gives me he gives me like obsessive dungeon master vibes. So, like he's been
oh yeah,
like studying this campaign for like years and really knows everything. It's just it's super super cool.
oh yeah, yeah. That's spot on. I feel like that is exactly the level of um detail that he had put into this. This was no half-assed attempt. This was a whole ass attempt.
Hmm.
But yeah. So let's talk about the main character. Let's talk about Luke Skywalker for a minute.
Yeah.
And again, opening this back up to the entire trilogy, how did you think that his arc of farm boy to Jedi Knight was executed? Did you think that he had stumbled at any point with the character development, or I know me personally, Luke Skywalker has one of the best character arcs in a sequence of movies of all time.
Yeah, no, I think it was really consistent all the way through. Um, he's really he's the same person, but he grows tremendously throughout all three movies. I think it was a really nice, steady arc for him. And there are a couple things in his arc that draws me back to the prequels. Like I as I was watching the original trilogy, I was astounded about like the level of detail they went into when creating the prequels in order to have this continuity between them. There are a couple things like let's see with the Sand People attack. Like the Sand People attack in the prequels is it's a huge turning point for Anakin. It's really like almost like the beginning of the end for him. And you see it really as his turn to the dark side. But then after a very similar situation happened to Luke, it's his beginning on his journey into the light. I mean, he goes from absolutely nothing to a Jedi Knight who's on par with Anakin and with the Emperor, or not on par. He gets his ass kicked, but like he's he really like matures and grows, and it's just a really smooth transition through all three movies, and it's super impressive.
Yeah, and again, I said this a lot last time that we talked about this. It's the famous quote: "If it's like poetry, it rhymes." George
Mm.
Lucas always wanted everything to not be a callback, but to be at least a visual or a mental representation of things that had come before it. So he always wanted things to come full circle. So like you said, Anakin's turn to the dark side was the pretty much the exact same thing of Luke's turn towards the light, and putting it set them, the Tusken Raider attack, like you said, it set them both on their distinct path. Be that completely opposite paths, still it was their catalyst, it was their turning point that you could point to. Um how did you think that the main cast in this all worked together? Be that Alec Guinness as Obi-Wan, Mark Hamill as Luke Skywalker, Harrison Ford as Han Solo, and Carrie Fisher as Leia.
I think well, you got to mention Harrison Ford because he's just a force in everything that he does. And I know nothing about how they felt coming into the movies, but it seems to me as if Harrison Ford really gave some legitimacy to this to like what Star Wars was trying to do, and really just kept it kind of grounded. I think they did a great job of taking something that nobody's ever worked with before, like a concept like they have no idea what this movie is supposed to look like, but they really do a great job of of making it happen. I mean, it's campy and cheesy at some points, but I mean, it was the '70s, and so I think they all did a really great job of grounding the movie and making it seem as realistic as possible, and keeping you in that suspended belief for the entire trilogy.
Yeah, Harrison Ford is a very underrated actor in my opinion. And again, that's probably because I'm a Star Wars shill, but like you said, he takes everything that he does and elevates it to another level. Um but so let's talk, we got to talk about we can't talk about episode 4 without talking about the one scene that gets everyone up in arms. Who shot first? Was it Han or was it Greedo?
Oh boy,
This
you
is
know,
not an on-screen question. This is a question of your belief. Because in technically there are points in time where you could say Han shot first. There are points in time where you could say Greedo shot first. If you're looking at what's on screen, this
hmm,
is what do you believe is truly how it goes or how it
I
should
gotta
be.
say. I do remember seeing something kind of funky with that scene. I'm gonna have to say that Greedo shot first.
Oh,
Um,
Jesus Christ.
but Han's survival instinct kicked in, and that's what he intended to happen, and he shot twice. Well, apparently that was the wrong answer, but
All right, well, this has been episode 4 of the Beskar Bucket. um, you know what? I'm more forgiving because you haven't watched Star Wars before. You're not as ingrained in this as clearly I am, and
yes.
I wouldn't expect you to. So the reason that that scene is such a debate is because when the special editions came around, uh, George Lucas thought it was a bad look for this hero character because at the time when Episode 4 came out, Han shot first. Actually, Han shot. Period. It was no first or second. It was Han blasted Greedo. Um, but when the special editions came out in '97, it George thought it was a bad idea to have your hero character, your reluctant hero, just start smoking guys in the middle of the bar. So he changed it to where Greedo shoots first. And wow, that started a whirlwind of uproar in the community because it's this scene of that just it's so badass that Han senses that Greedo is about to blast him in the middle of the cantina, but Han shoots first and he's like, I'm not gonna let you get a shot off, and I'm gonna end this right now because he knows that Greedo's gonna kill him and take his ship and give it back or give it to Jabba or take it for himself. So he's like, yeah, no, this ain't how this goes, and he shoots him. And of course, he walks over to the barkeep and flips him an Imperial credit and apologizes for the mess and walks out.
I think that was such a great like moment of characterization for him. Just really you just know from the get go that this man, he's seen it all, he's done it all. He's just a walking badass, man.
Right, and that's why everyone kind of felt that some of it. Look, it didn't destroy the character. Don't get me wrong. But it was one of those things where it's like that kind of diminishes his demeanor in the first movie, where it's like, oh well, he went from just a cool like a cowboy character, just smoking dudes, to okay, he was defending himself. That's not
Hmm.
as cool as just shooting someone in the middle of the bar. So in the cut that you saw, that's the most edited version we have to date of that specific scene. So it went from Han shot first to Greedo shot first to they shoot almost simultaneously, but Greedo still clearly shoots first, to now they shoot at the exact same time.
Hmm.
Actually, no, there's one more after that. That the version that you saw is again, this is probably the one thing I don't hate the special editions like a lot of people do. I think they actually add to the movie. But I will say this. The one thing they added for it's called the Disney Plus edition because there's all different. You've got the original, you've got the theatrical cut, you've got the '97 special edition, you've got the 2004 special edition, and then you have the Blu-ray special edition, and then obviously the Disney Plus. There are that many different cuts of this movie with different slight differences. In the Disney Plus edition, they added a scene of Greedo saying "McClunky," and then they shoot at the exact same time, kind of like this was a all right, time to die kind of deal. Um, but yeah, the other thing is in the middle of those edits, you know, you can't have Han just sit there and Greedo shoot at him because obviously he would, you know, shoot Han. So what they did was they like took Harrison Ford's head and like superimposed it to the side. Not like bent, but like just he cocks his head to the side. And yeah, it's one of those scenes where it's very interesting to see that now, knowing what we know now. It's it's interesting. But uh-oh, did we I think we might have lost Jess. I hope I wasn't just talking to myself explaining that for minutes on end. But yeah, well, we'll be back after a message from our friends at the Forces Behind Star Wars and the Inflatable Falcon. It's probably just going to be me. It's probably me.
Surprise! Did you really think it was going to be anyone else? No, you didn't. You knew it was going to be me. Like I was saying, make sure you check out the Inflatable Falcon podcast. That is myself, Mike, and Ken, where we discuss anything and everything Star Wars. It is a live show. We go live Wednesday nights at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Like I said, we talk anything and everything Star Wars. It's a live show. Make sure you come out, hang out, interact, and yeah. And then, of course, the other show on the Unifying Fandom Network is the Forces Behind Star Wars, and that is my co-host Ken and his crew, the Rad Batch, where they pick a topic and they discuss whatever their hearts desire. So I don't know if they have a set release schedule, but I do know they are currently recording an episode about their recap of Kenobi. So make sure you check that out, and of course check out the Inflatable Falcon. And yeah, let's get back to the show. Kinda. You'll see.
How bad did I lose you there?
Yeah, for a while there. Yeah, that was rough. Oh my gosh. Trying to see. That might be my internet keeps cycling. You're doing great so far there. I don't know, maybe she's getting a little hot. Let's see.
Did I lose you completely, or was I just talking to myself there?
I lost you. Yeah, you're talking to yourself, man. I lost you completely.
Sweet. Well, I inserted an ad break, so I gave myself a place to edit in an ad break.
Cool.
So, where did I lose you there? I guess I can repeat myself.
So you were describing how they fixed the issues of having Han just like shoot while or like adding time in for Greedo to speak or whatever.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it was a while. It was a long time, dude. No, I lost you for a while.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I missed that whole thing.
Well, I'm not gonna fully repeat myself, but in a nutshell, they added a scene where Greedo says McClunky to give Han a warning that hey, he's about to shoot you. And did I get to the 5 different? Did I tell you there's 5 different cuts of A New Hope, specifically that scene? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. So it basically what they did, because Han, that you can't just have Greedo shoot at Han, or else he would obviously shoot Han. So what they did was they took Harrison Ford's head and moved it, not like cocked it to the side. It was just a straight up vertical shift, like rubbernecking. Total, like, looks terrible. And that is still in the movie, at least in some capacity. I think it's fast enough now where you can't really notice it, but in the 97 and the 2004 special editions, it was bad. It was just like, oh yeah, that was all it was. But yeah, so
Han's not Force sensitive, my ass.
Right. So okay, let's fast forward, because we spent 45 minutes on just A New Hope. So
yes,
obviously Han Solo meets Obi-Wan, Luke, and they're flying to Alderaan. It's been destroyed. So when you see the Death Star, what are your first thoughts? Be that from the exterior and the interior of the Death Star. Would you put the two together? Would you think that, oh, this giant gray sphere would look like that on the inside?
Yeah, sure. I mean, just because we're talking about, because Death Star is the size of a moon, right? I mean, it's just like inconceivably large for a piece of machinery. Um, and and I mean, I really with
Oh no. Oh no. Well, I've lost Jess again until we get him back. Oh, yeah. No, we lost him again. So I apologize for the technical difficulties. I'm leaving this in. I don't like editing podcasts. I'm not the kind of guy who's going to sit there and edit every single millisecond. So yeah, you can enjoy this time of me just kind of rambling to myself. While I've got this time, I've gotten through 3 episodes of the Light and Magic documentary, and it has been fantastic so far. I know Ken from the Forces Behind Star Wars, Mike from the Inflatable Falcon and Karita Cast, and we were talking about it. Oh, we lost him completely. Oh no. Um, but yeah, we were talking about it, and there's some pretty bad reviews out on it right now. But I have been completely enthralled in it, and I'll talk about that more on a separate podcast. But it looks like I have Jess back now.
yes,
Yes.
sorry.
Ah, God, dude, plug in the potato internet. Come on. Looks like I get more time to talk about Light and Magic. He's gone again. We might have to do this the episodes 5 and 6 in person. Oh no. Well, I guess so. I've only gotten through 3 episodes of Light and Magic, so the biggest gripe that I saw, at least from the IGN review, was that it was too much Star Wars. And we were talking about this on the Inflatable Falcon in the very beginning minutes of my biggest. I don't understand why it's such an issue that the reviewer had with the documentary, because ILM was built for Star Wars. It was built from the ground up for Star Wars. So of course, a good chunk of the documentary was going to be about Star Wars. And yeah, I get it. Like, they worked on a lot of different things. However, like I said, it was built for Star Wars. It was George Lucas's company that he built for special effects. But Jess, you back?
I'm trying to. I'm at this point. I'm trying to switch over spots. Just give me 2 seconds. I don't want to keep leaving you with dead air there. Let's see what I can do here.
It's all right. I'm filling it in as best as I can. I already said I hate editing podcasts. It's the most mundane task that I can possibly think of. So I'm leaving it in as is. I'm throwing bumpers in for that. I'm gonna get Mike to make for the Inflatable Falcon and Ken to make for the Forces Behind Star Wars, but it's probably just gonna be me. Like, hey, pause, because Jess's internet is the quality of a potato.
Yes.
But yeah, go check out our other podcasts. So, but
Okay.
how's
Cool.
it going? Switching to the hotspot.
I can't get it to pop up on here. What the fuck?
Well, I tell you what, let's wrap up our conversation about episode 4. I'm gonna put this out as its own podcast, and then I think you and I could probably get together and just do a live recording.
Yeah.
That way, internet's not an issue.
Yes, that would be great.
Yeah, because I know our first episode there was a lot of like audio choppiness. So because I again, your internet is, you know what, I was trying to be modest. Your internet sucks. And
It's
you
garbage.
sounded like
it's absolute garbage. Listen. You're just lucky that I'm not at my grandmother's house right now, because literally,
Oh, Jesus.
when I download stuff on my Xbox here, I'm at about like 25 megabits per second. My grandmother's house, I was downloading stuff at like 1.5 megabits per second. So, usually it's
But
pretty good. It did okay for almost 45 minutes. So,
yeah, well, yeah, hey. It's yeah, we got quite a bit out of here. But hopefully we can at least talk about the rest of episode 4, and then I can cut this and we can. Oh God, we're gonna have to try and think of a time of when we can get together feasibly and record an episode. Because I mean, we really only need like
we'll figure-
2 hours tops.
yeah, probably.
So, but all right. So you're on the Death Star. What are your thoughts? You know, when you see, this
I
this
think
massive space station.
I think the Death Star really, the insides and the outsides really do line up. They have the color scheme for both, and it really just signifies this militaristic, authoritarian power that the Empire is. And I think it's done super well to do almost like a foreboding, cold, dead sense on the inside. Just you just know it's bad news from the get go, from the inside and the outside, and it's just. And I think just the scary part about it is when Grand Moff Tarkin, who I loved, his from like the first moment we meet him, when he's just grilling Leia. I think he says like to fire, and then within like 2 seconds,
Oh no!
really just absolutely terrifying. Okay, how much of that did you hear?
I heard Grand Moff Tarkin says fire within 2 seconds, and then picked up like 2 seconds after you just stopped talking.
Okay, yeah, so it fires and like Alderaan is just gone. And I just think that's terrifying that something that huge could destroy a planet just like that. Just yep, I'm gonna blow seconds here. Give me a second. So
Yeah, I think Peter Cushing as Grand Moff Tarkin was. I mean, again, rest in peace. But I wish he was still with us. Just that the
mhm.
presence that he brought as Tarkin was just un. You can't match it. I mean,
Mhm.
he again, gold standard of what the antagonistic militant force should be. Grand Moff Tarkin was the model. Um, I'm trying to speed run this now. I sent you a list of questions where I'm like, yeah, no, we can cut that out. Let's. Okay, so, oh God, I'm skipping over so much and I don't like it. But so we get to the assault on the Death Star, where you basically have this giant dogfight in space. Um, George Lucas, when they were doing the rough cut, he took um scenes of like World War II dogfights and would put the sound effects over top of it just to get the idea of what he was going for. You know, again, knowing that this is 1977 and knowing that the effects like this have never been done before, even though you see the updated special edition special effects, what are your thoughts when you see the X-wings and the TIE fighters just flying across you know the outside of the Death Star?
I mean, now that you mentioned that he like looked at like World War II, like dogfighting and stuff like that, that really makes sense because you get a lot of that almost like Top Gun feeling where people are they're just flying by in like all angles trying to find who's shooting at you, and that just makes a lot of sense. I'm not sure how much of it was practical effects and how much was the updated special effects. Um, but I think it was really well shot, and I think for him to have that idea to look at like a realistic dogfight, because I mean dogfighting is dogfighting. I mean, no matter if you're in space on Earth. Sure, they're gonna have a couple more angles there, but I mean, it's
Mm? And he's gone. He's gone. Ooh, this is a rough one. Maybe. No, okay, yeah, he's gone once again. I'm so sorry, everyone. This is an unfortunate situation that we're in, but we will prevail. Like Peter Quincy Taggart said, "Never give up, never surrender." I okay, off topic, but kind of on topic. Galaxy Quest, fantastic movie. I actually just watched the ending of it here. I don't know, 2 hours ago. Um, very underrated pop culture movie. If you haven't, okay, so Galaxy Quest is basically a spoof of the original Star Trek series. So think if you took the cast of Star Trek and actually put the actors in the world of that they were in, fantastic movie. You gotta give it a chance if you haven't. It's got Tim Allen, Sigourney Weaver, Alan Rickman in it. Sorry, I was talking about Galaxy Quest while your potato got baked again.
gotcha. Where did you lose me?
Uh, uh the when you're talking about how or no, I was saying the 90% of the stuff that when you see the ships in, because you had asked or you said you didn't know how much of it was practical and how much of it was the updated special effects.
Hmm.
I don't remember if I had gotten to my point yet. I forget immediately what was just said.
Okay. Did you hear me talk about how I think it added tension to the scene, the dogfighting aspect?
Probably continue.
Okay. Okay. So I really think it helped add tension to it. Um, because it was just super realistic, I mean, like guys were dropping like flies left and right. So it's just you got a real sense of urgency, and it just great storytelling, from with the resources that he had. He really brought it all together.
Yeah, it's I don't even I'm at a loss for words for with when I watch the trench run and the assault on the Death Star. It's one of those things in, and he's gone again. Oh, Faye, this is some real thick of it. As soon as I get him back, we're gonna wrap this up as quickly as possible. But back to Galaxy Quest. Think if you took the actors from Star Trek, so you've got your William Shatners, your Leonard Nimoys, and you dropped them into actual like space in on the Enterprise, a real Enterprise, not just like a cardboard set. That's Galaxy Quest. Fantastic. Tim Allen, Sigourney Weaver, Alan Rickman. Don't know if there's any other like major notable actors in it, but yeah, definitely worth the watch if you haven't seen it. I highly recommend it. It's one of the few movies that I actually went out of my way to get a digital copy of it because it's not exactly easy to get Galaxy Quest on Blu-ray, but oh, he hasn't popped back up yet. Oh, I might have lost him for good. But yeah, definitely check out Galaxy Quest if you haven't. Also, check out the Light and Magic documentary on Disney Plus. It's it's been really good so far. I haven't finished it. I'm 3 of 6 episodes in, but yeah, definitely not a waste of 3 hours thus far. Yeah, I think it's really interesting to actually look and see how they did everything because there's a lot of footage that I have never seen before of actually when they were in Van Nuys in Northern California, in the shops that they were in. Like they've got footage of them, all together, and obviously there's behind the scenes footage of them filming the movie. I'm not surprised about that. But like just behind the scenes footage of like them just hanging out and yeah, really, really interesting stuff. So if you haven't started or seen Light and Magic, definitely check it out. I would say it's definitely well worth the watch. All right, we got to wrap this up. I can only talk about Galaxy Quest and Light and Magic so much. Oh, now you've got no sound. Come on, man. I got nothing. No, Jess. He's just talking. Oh, he might be on the phone. Ah. Oh, he's trying to get his hotspot set up. Gotcha. Well, for those of you that are listening to the audio version of this podcast, there is video for us, and this is also on YouTube. If you'd like the visual representation of the hellscape that I'm currently engulfed in, you're more than welcome to check out the YouTube. Just look up the Beskar Bucket on YouTube. You will find all of our VODs. And yeah, we're slowly encroaching on the 1 hour mark, and I've lost Jess now for a fifth time. Yeah, he just went MIA again. Jess, I see you're in the green room. Give me a thumbs up if you're good, or if I need to keep talking. All right. There we go.
Yeah, the hotspot wasn't any better. In fact, it was worse.
Well, yeah, there's also no service at your apartment, so
That is true. That is true. Well, there's gonna be some chops in this episode, huh?
Yeah, a little bit. I hate editing, so we're going with the flow. Did I lose him again? Are we going for a sixth time here? I think, honestly, hey, as soon as I get him back, it's probably just gonna be a hey, 9 scale of 1 to 10. What do you think? Closing thoughts? All right, thanks for listening. Wow, this is messy. I'm still putting this out. Content's content. Nobody can tell me otherwise. This is my show. If you don't like it, I'll listen to your opinion. Actually, I do want to make this as good and as good as experience as possible. He is calling me. Oh, no. Hello.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. I was gonna see if you could put me on speakerphone here and see if they can hear me that way.
Okay. Guerrilla warfare, I guess.
Okay, let's see. All right, can you hear me?
This is the quality of the Beskar Bucket that you get. You can tell this is a real podcast. We fly off the cuff here. This ain't no scripted podcast. Hey, it's just like Bill O'Reilly said. Fuck it, we'll do it live. But I don't want to do this too long. So all right, I'll get your closing thoughts. I'll get some more in depth when we do this in person. But
Yes.
Scale of 1 to 10, where would you say that this one falls for you?
Scale of 1 to 10. New Hope has got to be a 9 out of 10. I think. I think yeah. You know what? We'll get into that in the next episodes. I think, but I think it's going to stand at a solid 9 out of 10.
All right, that's a respectable score. I wholeheartedly agree with you. Not only because I love Star Wars, but I think that's a fair score. What would you say your what did you like? What did you dislike? Just give me one of each.
Okay, so I really liked. I really liked how almost D&D-ish it felt. Like I referenced George as being like a obsessed dungeon master, but it really does play out with like that. Like you've got a big bad evil guy that we don't really know much about. He's just kind of thrown in there. It makes it seem like this world has been going on for a while. And so I think it's really, really great. One thing I didn't like, I think there could have been some more emotional payoff in this one. I think he was working with what he had. I think you do see more of an emotional payoff in the second and third movie of the trilogy, where he becomes more well-funded, more Hollywood, more just I don't want to say well done, because the first movie was super, super well done with what he had. But yeah, maybe shoot, go away. Maybe he I could have had a little more of an emotional payoff there, but it was still just there's. It's hard to say a bad thing about this movie in particular.
Wow, even your phone call audio is not as bad, but still kind of scuffed. But all right, well, I will we'll call it here. Thank you, Jess. I appreciate you kind of weathering the storm here with me of your garbage internet. But
we did our best.
Yeah, again, hey, you can tell this ain't no scripted show. We do everything the best we can and with what we got. But well, hey, just like Lucas and ILM did, they're gonna take what they have and they're gonna do better next time. They got to improve on what they got. But thank you, Jess. I appreciate everyone listening. Inflatable Falcon Wednesdays at 8:30, give or take. Definitely check out the forces behind Star Wars. Hopefully, Mike can get Karita cast with Colin rolling again. I might have my hand in that if we can actually get that up and rolling. But yeah, Beskar Bucket, new episodes coming out whenever they can. Look, this is all just on the side, so we get done what we can get done. But appreciate everyone listening, and we'll see you next time. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, John.